let me know when we're live, please. Brilliant.
We're live on YouTube, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, and people are coming to present some information for us. This is the meeting for the Kingsthorpe Parish Council for the 24th of February 2021. You can find the agenda currently on the Northampton Borough Council website, or hopefully at a later point it will be on the Kingsthorpe Parish Council website as well. So we'll move on to the first item of the agenda, which is apologies. Have we received any apologies?
None received.
None received. And Councillor Beardsworth has said she's going to be on presently. Are there any declarations of interest from any members? Okay, just me. I have one, and that is I'm currently a member of the Planning Committee for Northampton Borough Council, which would relate to item number 8. So when that comes up, I will be abstaining from any votes. So item 3, I take it you've all read the minutes. Are you okay for me to sign them off as a true record?
Yes, agreed, Chair.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Minutes were approved.
I'll just wait for Councillor Beardsworth to come.
I'm here. I'm so sorry. I thought it was 7. My apologies.
That's quite all right, Sally. Do you have any declarations of interest?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move straight on to item 4 in that case, which is a presentation from the Northampton Jets Youth Football Club. And I believe it is Nick Hart who's come to represent them.
Yeah, I've got the presentation, Nick, so I can drive that for you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Could I just first say that we're actually Kingsthorpe Jets Youth Football Club, not Northampton Jets. Okay, so that's the first point. My name's Nick Hart. I'm the chairman for Kingsthorpe Jets Youth Football Club. And I've got 2 of my colleagues that have joined the meeting tonight, and they are Terry Wright, who is our club secretary and he's also the welfare officer, and Lee McRae, who is our club development officer, and as of last night he was voted in as vice chair. Okay, so congratulations, Lee, on that appointment for the club. Lee will be talking as we go through the presentation a little bit later on about the development. But before we start the presentation, I'd just like to thank everybody for the opportunity and for the invitation and for us to present our ideas. The last slide of what we're about to present is, at this stage, it's a concept, it's an idea, and we're no further along than it actually being a concept. Okay, so I'd just like you to bear that in mind when we talk about the last slide on the presentation. But what we do feel that this idea or this concept will not just only benefit our football club, but it could hugely benefit the wider community and the people of Kingsthorpe and potentially further afield from that as well. So I guess what we're looking for from this meeting is for the support of you guys within this meeting and to advise us on what the next stages could potentially be to take this development concept forward. Okay, so we're looking for advice and guidance if we agree that the concept could work in principle. Okay. So next slide, please, Kate.
Wonderful.
Okay, so just to set the scene, many of you may have heard of us because we have been established since 1992, so a good 29 years. There's lots of football clubs that come and go, but this demonstrates that we're sustainable. We're a well-run amateur youth club or youth football club. In Kingsthorpe, we've always played in Kingsthorpe, and we're a non-profit organisation run entirely by volunteers. Okay, so nobody gets paid within our organisation. We currently have 28 teams, which is really strong number across multiple age groups, from our little mini jets, which are 4 and 5, or under 5s and under 6s, all the way up to men's football, and we have a ladies team as well. So we have 390 players within, or 393 to be accurate, which makes us one of the largest football clubs in Northamptonshire. Our all-female section is the largest female section in the county. We have 10 teams and over 120 players within our girls and ladies section alone. We have all of our team managers are qualified, and they are what they call a level FA1 qualified coach, which means they are DBS checked, first aided, and they have a qualification to coach football. We also have 3 level 2 qualified coaches, which is the higher level of coaching. We have a very strong and dedicated volunteer executive committee. It says 7 there, it's now 9. We appointed 2 new executive committee members at our AGM on Zoom yesterday. And they include myself as the chairman. We have Terry, registration, Leah's development. We have a treasurer, welfare officer, registrations, and a head coach within the club. We are also FA Charter Standard certified. Now, this is an important certificate because it demonstrates that we're well run, we're sustainable, and we prioritise things like coaching and safeguarding of the children that play for us. And we obviously follow the Respect programme as part of the FA's initiative. We are currently playing across 2 sites in Kingsthorpe. You may have seen us play. You can probably get the feel that we play in blue and yellow. So if you see blue and yellow football teams playing in Kingsthorpe, that's probably us. But we're playing across 2 sites. So we're currently playing at the Rec, or Kingsthorpe Rec, and Spring Park, which we also know as the Pastures. So playing across 2 sites, it's got a bit of a disjointed feel to the club. We don't have any kind of home ground changing rooms or a clubhouse at any field. So it's very disjointed, really, when you look at us from a home ground point of view. So hopefully that just sets the scene about a little bit about who we are and how we operate. So what I'm going to do now is pass you over to Lee McRae, and he will take you through the next few slides, if that's okay.
Mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with Kingsthorpe Rec and the situation as it is now. So Kingsthorpe Rec currently has what we would sort of deem as being minimal use. There's, besides us in terms of football, and we're by far the biggest users on a regular basis of Kingsthorpe Rec. There's minimal use really in terms of the bowls at the moment, the outdoor bowls. We're seeing regular signs of some antisocial behaviour up there. Although it's a really nice space and it's tree lined and everything, we are seeing as a place that people are congregating. There's quite a lot of litter, the nitrous oxide canisters and things like that. So we're seeing that kind of lower level, I'd say, antisocial behaviour. Deteriorated appearance, as you can see with the sign for the Football Foundation. It's just a little bit needs a bit of a clean up, really. Dated, fairly unsightly changing rooms with basic facilities. It's a really nondescript brown painted building. It's very, very functional, but we see really good potential with this site. There's been very little in the way of recent investment, apart from a new roof, which I think was best part of 10 years ago that roof was put on. I'm looking at Nick and he's nodding, so I know that I took a wing on that one. I think that was about right. There's currently the unused boarded up structure, which is the bowls hut, and you have tennis courts which have not been used for some time, and you can see through the image there where you have a moss, and they're not suitable, they're not playable because of an unsafe surface currently.
Next slide, Jeff. Just give me a shout.
Thank you. So this is our immediate plan. We've been playing at the Rec for a relatively short period of time. Up until with all those numbers and those number of players that we have, believe it or not, up until last season, we were playing across 2 sites and we didn't have any storage facility, and we didn't even have a toilet. So potentially in some games we had a couple of hundred people around and we couldn't offer any toilet facilities. It was a condition of the ladies' league, the women's league, that we at least needed to provide toilets for girls, which meant that we and we'd like to offer it for boys as well, but it was a league condition, which led to us going to the rec and using a changing room up at that site. What we did identify since we were up there, though, is that there's although it's served a function for us in terms of toilets and storage, we had a route which you can see marked in yellow at the bottom, which meant from the pitches, you had to walk all the way round, for those who are familiar with it, and run kind of parallel to the building, up through that gate where you see the turning, and then back in. And that caused us some safeguarding issues, particularly in the evening. So we were successful in receiving a small grant, and we're having a new gate put in, which means that our players and our coaches and spectators can go straight off the pitches now, use those facilities, and straight back out. So this has all been approved, and work is taking place on that in the very near future. Next slide, Kate. So this is where things start to get hopefully a little bit more interesting. So those of you, we haven't really got many pictures of the outside of the building it is now, but for those of you who are familiar, these images really do sort of transform the site, at least on a cosmetic level. We've agreed in principle with Northampton Borough Council for a 5-year lease agreement on what is still known as the pensioners' room. Now, the pensioners' room, for those who are familiar, if you look on the bottom right-hand corner if you look at the bottom image, you'll see there's some doors and 2 sets of windows. So that room runs the whole width of the building. It has a small kitchen and a seating area and a toilet in there. And we're planning to use that as a central meeting point for our coaches in kind of post-COVID lockdown world, where we can all get together, run things like summer camps for children during the summer. But this would meet a short-term need for us, really, in terms of trying to bring the club together, trying to give us a focal point, but also we'd have the ability here to sell refreshments. So the image that you'll see in the top right-hand corner, you can see there's some windows of the top photo, the top image. You'll see there's some photos. Some windows. That's it. Thank you, Kate. The plan is that we would replace those windows with the roller shutter, and that from coming off from the gate, we'll be able to sell refreshments to our players, staff, visiting teams, and that'll be an important source of income for us as a club. It will also provide us with some storage facilities. And we run some temporary floodlights as well, which need charging. So we need this space for storage and for electricity, because the changing rooms don't have any electric. So as a short-term solution, this will tide us over for some time, but it does have some fallbacks. It doesn't allow us much space to grow, and we're very much a growing club, and we still have a number of issues. For example, the limited parking that's currently at the rec. Thank you, Kate. So this is the crux of what we wanted to get to today. So if we think of a short term and perhaps even to a medium term plan, the facility at the top of the rec will do us well. And for the fact that we've not had any home and anywhere to get together, as a short term, that really will be a huge benefit to us. But our longer term plans as a club are much bigger. And we have got to think about the fact that we're currently having to turn children away. Although we always try and give them coaching opportunities, we're growing as a club and we want to continue to grow. We also want to offer football to people that we currently can't because of the kind of facilities we have. So we'd like to offer walking football. We'd like to offer disability football, and none of those things that we can offer under our current setup. So our proposal and the development concept, and health warning over this, as Nick explained earlier, this is an outline plan that how we feel the football club could form part of a larger community facility at Kingsthorpe Rec. So if you look at building number 1, or icon number 1 on there, the plan as we see it at the moment would be for this structure here to be a changing room and meeting place for the football club. So that would offer storage, would offer teas and coffees, changing rooms, toilet facilities in building number 1. Item number 2 that you'll see on there is a 3G pitch. Now, we've marked that out as a full-size pitch, but that's just for illustration. Really, that's going to be used largely, we're a youth football club, so this isn't going to be one football team using that. That could be 3 or 4 young people's teams playing at any one time on that 3G pitch. And that's floodlit, as indicated. Building number 3, and this is where we think this is really part of a community facility. We really think that this only works as a facility if we can use that whole space for wider community activities. So we saw the potential here for a community sports centre, and in that building, that could be a building that people are using for mums and tots groups, for pensioner groups, for adult learning. There's space in there potentially for a sports hall, lots of different uses. And with the greatest respect, it's probably not for us as a football club to say what should go into that space. This is just an idea. This is a concept for your thought. But the idea is, of course, that when we're not using that 3G pitch, it could be used by wider parts of the community. So it's adjacent to the 3G pitch. Part 4 is the space allocated to bowls, and we've had an initial conversation with the people from the Bowls Club, and it's a smaller facility than they have at the moment, going from 3 pitches to 2, but they're happy with that. We obviously need to keep them consulted, but they are happy with that, and they'd obviously have the use of the community sports centre. So that's part 4. Part 5 is a potential for some outdoor tennis courts to replace the tennis courts that are currently in this kind of dilapidated state, but replacing them with next generation multi-surface, and that will be floodlit as well. And number 6 is a multi-use court, which you may have seen from the university as an example, which could be used for things like basketball, hockey, street football, all different kinds of things could take use on that multi-use court. The only other things to really address here are we've marked where we'd propose some external fencing to go. That's marked in red, and the current existing fencing is marked in yellow. And we've also made some initial thoughts around car parking, which are obviously illustrated in the top corner. So I don't want to hijack the whole meeting. As I say, this is just a concept at this stage. I think that's the last of our slides, so maybe I'll just pass back over to Nick.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lee. Not much to add, really, other than a couple of points. We've had a meeting initially with an organisation called Premier Tennis, who are very supportive of this idea as well. Okay, we've had considerable meetings with the FA with regards to this project as well, and we broadly have their support with regards to moving forward with this potential concept if we were to be at the stage where we could move forward with it. I think that concludes our presentation, and what I'd like to do at this stage is just open up the floor to any questions or any feedback that anybody's got with regards to what we've just presented. Thank you.
Stop the share for now so that everyone can be seen.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. If I could just ask if anybody has any questions, to use the raise hand function, and I will take them in the order that the hands are raised. So Councillor Beardsworth, Sally.
Oh, thank you, Chair. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm absolutely delighted with it, and it's very, very ambitious. I just wondered about funding, because bottom line, you can have the best, designs and will in the world, but unless you've got the backing funding, it's going to be a job to deliver. Are you expecting to do it all in one fell swoop, or are you expecting to do a bit at a time? That's my first question.
Yeah, thank you, Sally, for that question. We have obviously thought about the funding, and this has obviously got to come from somewhere. Now, we are in consultation at the moment with the FA that are connected to the Football Foundation that offer grants and potentially substantial grants. The Football Foundation will only fund football projects. They won't fund multi-sport. It's football. It's the Football Foundation money is driven by the government and by the Premier League and from the FA, so they will only fund. So there is a potential avenue of funding via the Football Foundation. We are at very, very early stages of this, and we haven't approached this directly with regards to funding, but there are other opportunities with regards to Sport England. There is potential Section 106 money. There's a lot of development in the Kingsthorpe area going on at the moment. There is National Lottery. They're funding football and sports projects at the moment. There is obviously the local authority from an avenue of funding. So there's a number of different funding avenues that we could potentially look at for this project.
Lovely, thank you.
Did you want to say something, Sally?
No, I'll let other people come in as well.
Okay. Councillor Aziz.
Hello, yes. I think this is a very good project. Do you have any plan to involve local businesses for funding?
Sorry, what? Sorry, was that? Have we asked any local businesses with regards to funding?
Or are you considering to contact local businesses for funding?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we would consider. We have strong connections already within the club. As I've explained, we have 28 teams, so we have a sponsor for every single team. So there's an immediate source of the opportunity there. But absolutely, it's something that we'd be very, very keen to do, is talk to local businesses. We want local businesses on to support this project, and if we drive footfall in Kingsthorpe, then it can only support their business.
If I could just support Nick on that point, the other thing is as well, Councillor is just we can also get the there are other organisations like the Lawn Tennis Association who also provide grants. So the idea with some of these other sports being involved is we'd like to sort of extinguish all of those opportunities for grants and see where that takes us, as well as approaching companies. So thank you.
Well, if any stage, if we consider to involve local businesses, please contact me. I might consider to give some money from my business or some support from my business.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Aziz. That's fantastic. Really appreciate that support, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thank you for that kind offer. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Aziz. The next is Councillor Parish. So Nilesh.
Good evening, Nick and Lee. That was a great presentation, actually. Very informative. It's good to see something going on in Kingsthorpe, and something that's going to involve the wider community and across all age ranges as well. Do you have any costings for that project at all? Or is that something that's ongoing?
The short answer to that is no, we don't. At this stage, we are very early in to this concept. We haven't got to the stage of any particular costings. I've got a rough idea from the football side, but as an overall project, we don't have that information to date.
Okay. You spoke about the roller shutters there, Lee, but you're talking about just at the top, the roller shutters for the top? would it not be considered for the whole thing, just for, just to secure yourselves from vandalism?
Yes, thank you for that. And I think that's a very legitimate point. I mean, the building, if you're familiar with the building at the moment, you'll know it's got some security grills around the building at the moment. So those windows on the artist's impression, it all looks like that it's open. Actually, it's not. Around there, there's really good perimeter fencing. There's grills on the building at the moment. And there's grills currently over the windows that we're proposed to take down to replace with a roller shutter and new windows as a serving hatch. What we're trying to do with the greatest will in the world is to do this up to the point that we can have a really good facility for as long as we use this facility without making too many long-term investments or asking for grants and taxpayers' money or other people's money for something that maybe in a few years, if things go to plan, maybe sort of 4 or 5 years time, we might be looking at something different. So that's the plan at the moment. But one thing I would like to do on behalf of Nick, Terry and myself, if anybody would like to come up to the building and meet us up there when we're allowed to do so and see what it's like now, and then the plans that we have for taking it forward, you'd be more than welcome, of course, if you'd like to have a closer look.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I do have some council empowerment fund which will be available. So, something, if that's of help at the moment, if we can get together, if you can contact me. And
That'd be fantastic.
Talk about that. And again, I've got a business in Kingsthorpe as well. And we might be able to raise some funds. Well, I have got some funds for that as well. So, yeah, if you contact me privately on that, then we can talk further on it.
That would be really fantastic. I mean, for us, Nick will be able to say, but I think it's over 90% of our funds come purely from subscriptions and people paying for their monthly fees for playing. So any kind of revenue that we get, it makes a huge difference to us as a football club. Sure. If we can sell teas and coffees and things like that, things that other clubs have done for ages. Yeah. And even though we are a long-established club, we've not had that option. So anything you can do to help us get to that point would be brilliant. So thank you very much for that.
Also, I'm very happy to visit your place and sit down and talk about this issue a bit further. So if you are interested, give me a call and then we'll arrange a meeting.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
It wouldn't be a bad idea for us all to visit, Chair, and actually enjoy. And I think people have to be careful about volunteering money on councils because it can look, especially just before election time, it can look quite bad. So be careful.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was about to suggest that myself, that after the elections, because that's when we'll be able to go there, that whoever's in the parish council should take you up on your offer to visit the premises. So the next question is Mr. Miller.
Hello. Yeah, just to echo the councillors, I think it was an excellent presentation. So thanks to Nick and Lee for doing that. One question I've got is that the Kingsthorpe Rec obviously still remains, I think, the property of the Borough Council, or it's managed by the Borough Council. And you said about how you'd spoken to the Bowls Club, and the Bowls Club were broadly supportive, and the LTA were broadly supportive. But I think a project like this you're not going to be able to do it unless you've got the support of the Borough Council. So I just wondered, I think it's a brilliant idea, by the way. I mean, everyone who knows that part of the rec knows that, it's obviously seen better days, and anything that brings it back into some sort of state of repair rather than a state of disrepair is going to be good. But I just wondered if the Borough Council were broadly on board, or if you've had exploratory conversations with them yet.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thanks, Steve, for that question. We've had some very open conversations, nothing formal from the Borough Council. We've spoken to Peter Hackett, who I believe is part of the Parks and Open Spaces team. So he's broadly aware. He's aware that we're in this meeting this evening, and is aware of our long-term vision and the short-term plan as well. But no, Steve, nothing formal. I kind of felt that the first stage, we've had some correspondence previously with Councillor Rumans and Councillor Hallam as well, who's Parks and Open Spaces for the Borough Council. So they are aware of the conversations, the very early conversations that we're having on this potential project.
All right, and I mean, I say the Borough Council, obviously it's presumably going to transfer over to the West Northamptonshire Unitary, yeah?
Yeah.
That's what I was just coming in to say. On April the 1st, the Borough Council ceased to exist.
Yep.
And it'll be the West Northamptonshire Unitary Council that you'll have to apply for grants.
Yes. Did you have any other questions, Mr. Miller?
No, not the no, not the minute. Thanks, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Sally. That was the point you wanted to make. I have to agree that I'm very positive for this. I'm sorry, Mr. Brady, you were going to come back in, but I'll just finish what I was saying. I'm very positive for this. I think this would make great use of the space and be very positive for the community. And although this isn't something that we can sort of like do a binding vote upon, once everyone's asked their questions, I will just ask for a show of hands to see together what the support is among the councillors and the co-opted members. And from that, you'll be able to judge how we feel, and then we can just move on from there. So, Kate. Oh, sorry. First of all, sorry, Mr. Brady. Sure.
Hi, Nick Lee. Yeah, it was just a quick follow-up to some of the questions, because I think this is a really, really positive idea and development, more so because it touches on, of residents I've spoken to, it touches on, you know, the big need and big want from a lot of people, which is obviously not only could it offer a lot more for the youth, but also I think you mentioned there may be opportunities for older members of the community, walking, football, that kind of thing. And I was just wondering, at the moment, is your intention with that maybe to merely offer the facilities for those opportunities, or would you actually look to be kind of running some of those ideas as well and actually offering, you know, walking, football for older members, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So if I come in on this one, so we first of all, Sean, I suppose the main thing is we need to judge what the interest is. So we'd like the opportunity to offer line football by working with NAB, for example, and walking football. The idea would be that we would have a Jets team. So we'd organise it. We normally get volunteers involved who help to run these sides. We've just not been able to run it in a safe. These kind of things obviously need a safe environment. They need the right pitches and that kind of thing up to this point. They'll be subject to interest, of course. So we can build it and they will come, I suppose. And it also gives us the opportunity, not only at that older age group, but really at very, very young ages, at 3, 4, 5-year-olds, we could be running games on the AstroTurf, or potentially we see ourselves as, if there was a community sports facility, we could be one of the biggest customers of that sports facility by using the indoor facility as well. So I think it's an idea, it's something we'd very much like to do, but we haven't done any work yet to assess, because we don't want to advertise it until we know that we can offer that kind of.
Yeah. No.
If I just, thanks, Lee. Yeah, if I just add to that, obviously we're a well-established football club. We've got a very good reputation in the town. We've got very good connections with the FA. We have some disability coaches. We have teachers that work in the disability field as well. So it's almost a natural transition for us, and we have the structure in place to implement something like this relatively quickly, should we have the facilities in place.
That's fantastic. Really good. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Kate, you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I can't put my hand on the name of the organisation at the moment, but there is an organisation that I've worked with before where you'll get architects, quantity surveyors and such who will offer services free of charge for projects of this kind to help build up project plans and get initial costings and start to look at planning matters and so on. So I can certainly put you in touch with that organisation, and they'll give so much free time to projects of this nature, which might be helpful as plans progress.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Kate. No, that'd be brilliant.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Sally, you wanted to ask another question?
Yes, just coming back in very quickly. Thank you, Kate. That's a brilliant idea if they can contact you. I think the most important thing you can do now is to get your plans drawn up, get it costed, so you know how much it's going to cost, even if it's a phased costing. And then when the council gets elected in May the 6th, you can apply to the county council, the new one, and also you've got all that facility to send out to other people as well. It's getting it, the concept is really good, but unless you get it on paper with a costing, it's very difficult to get money. So that's what I advise you to do next. And I feel sure that everybody will support you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for that advice. That's really valuable for us. That's really good, and we'll certainly look to do that.
Councillor Aziz?
Yes, I think I do agree with Sally. What they need to do, they need to set up proper business plan, black and white. Then they can send this business plan to council, everyone, local businesses, so they will know exactly what it will cost, and people can see if somebody want to donate anything, then somebody can see what they're doing, and that will help them a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the support. Thank you, everybody.
If I could just finish off, obviously we'll come to a show of hands in a moment. But if I could suggest that you come back to the parish council after the elections, after doing some costing and seeing what other revenue streams are available, because the incoming council will have a mandate and it will be fully formed, so there'll be 15 members. If you come back then with a sort of a more complete overview, because now we've had this meeting, we can make it more widely known that this is a proposal, and hopefully we can get some more community engagement.
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Yeah, sounds great.
So if we could just have a show of hands to see who supports this. And Sam Reemans is the county councillor for Northampton North. So if we could see if you support this as well, Sam. So if you just raise our hands to see if we're...
Kingsthorpe North.
And the co-opted members can do the same. So I think that's unanimous. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you very much for the presentation. That was a very good presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Just before we drop out, I've noticed that on the agenda this evening, there's potential to talk about a badge competition. Would it be okay, Chair, if I just spoke a little bit about that quickly? Or do you have to follow the agenda?
We have to follow the agenda.
Okay.
We don't have any public speakers, but when we get, you can remain in the meeting, and when we come to discuss it, it will just be like what we have, what we're planning to do, and how we think would be the best way to go about it, because everything will become clearer when we reach item number 6.
Okay. Yeah, understand. Thank you.
And the very fact it's going out on YouTube, people in Kingsthorpe hopefully will watch this and understand what you're trying to do.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is regarding the library provision in Kingsthorpe. And we're going to receive information from Councillor Sam Reemans, who is present. So please go ahead, Sam.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just a really brief update to kind of take people through what's happened so far and where we've arrived at the moment and where potentially we could take things. So obviously we had the way back now, God, in what was it, 2018, when there was the potential that Kingsthorpe Library was going to be obviously moving out of the county council's hands, and I'll put on record that I voted against that actually, but taken out of county council's hands, and it would be left to the community to work out how a provision could be put in place. Obviously lots of different things have happened since. Certainly in terms of timings, lots of things got delayed that were meant to happen earlier in terms of the kind of close down process, which has helped us. And since then, we've then had Shez Webb, who's on this call, the executive head of Northgate Schools Group. And Northgate Schools came in with the idea of taking the place over. And initially we were looking at it going up to the Beehive, but then we had a look at it, and actually it was going to be viable to go into the current library site, which would be fantastic. Since then, there have been a number of different issues that have come into play. Obviously, COVID has played a big part, and there were some other issues around how the county council had dealt with certain bits, but Shez will allude to some of that when she makes some comments in a bit. But the main thing is the Beehive are still involved to an extent and have potential to be involved moving forward, and potential to help commit some funds, which again, I will leave to Shez to put any more detail on. I don't want to say things that she can. But the county council are also trying to keep the process going for as long as possible so that there can be a smooth handover to whatever sort of make-up organisation we have for the library. So I believe the legal process, which Shez explained to me again, is being taken through with the Beehive at the moment to keep it moving, and the county council are kind of honouring that. But there is the potential actually for the parish to kind of jump in and maybe play a part in running it, and possibly committing some funds to it now that there's a precept in place. Not ideal. I think I'd prefer to have it funded by the county council, but we are where we are. So that's kind of a brief update. We have a potential for it to be run partially by the parish, partially with Beehive, maybe other things coming into play, possibly local businesses, as been mentioned, donating in to help run it. The one big positive with it not being run, I suppose, by the county or by the unitaries, as it will be, is that there will be more freedom over what the space can be used for. I envisage potentially this parish could actually use that as its meeting place. It's a central location in the middle of Kingsthorpe. It works well, I think, for everybody, very accessible to the public as well, and a kind of a good civic centre, potentially it could be. And there's any number of other things that could happen. So really, it's to open up to any questions that people have. I'll try and field all of those that I can, and then we'll maybe pass it to Shez to give an update from the Beehive's point of view. Thanks.
So I think actually before we go to any questions, if Shez could just give her update, and then we can question everybody at the same time.
Okay, right, I could do that. Right, welcome. Oh, hello everybody. Obviously, I'm the head teacher at Northgate School. We expressed an interest in running the library. You will know that if you're all Kingsthorpe people, you will know that we run the Beehive as a community business for our young people to learn employability skills in, and we saw the library right back in those days, 2018, as an opportunity for us to develop a different type of learning environment for our young people to run. If you think about people who like things that are obsessively have to be the same, we're talking about people with perhaps autistic tendencies who don't like there to be lots of disruption, who like things to stay the same, it would be a really good learning environment for something like that. So we put together a plan, committed it to a business plan, and it started to move forward. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the fact, but the Kingsthorpe Library can only be used as a library, and originally within the original lease, which was 100-and-something-year-old lease, it could only be run by Northamptonshire County Council. So we've had to go through quite an extensive legal process to get the owner of the building, who owns all of that, the library, the bit where the bank is, and all that whole section on that corner is all owned by the same person. And he was only interested in letting it stay as a library. He doesn't want it let as anything else. So we've been working for more than 2 years to get through the lease to a point where he would actually allow it to be leased by NCC to another group. At the moment, all the paperwork that's going through is going through in Northgate's name, because we agreed with the local authority that actually we would stay on board with the process to get it that far. The reason that we have at the moment stepped back apart from the project is that with COVID, the idea of us running it, when we had, the idea was you had a library that you weren't allowed to open, and people could come to the door and just ask for books. Wasn't something we could do, because we are going to have to run it as a business. It would have to make money, so it would have to have an income coming in, and we put together all kinds of ideas in our business plan of how that would work. Things like after school clubs, things like activities during the day for young people, holiday clubs, all those kind of things, letting the building or hiring the building out for meetings. come on board, hiring it out for meetings in the evenings and things like that, so that we'd have lots of different activities and it would become more of a centre. But it can only, and within the lease this is very clearly stipulated, it can only be used for things that are directly linked to its original intention to be used as a library. So you can't, we couldn't clear all the books out and turn it into a nightclub or anything else that nobody would want. But I couldn't empty it out and turn it into some other kind of shop or anything. It has got to stay as a library. So that's where we are with it. So we stepped back from the library position because of that, partly because of that, also because they did a condition survey and there's a couple of issues that the county council didn't see were a problem, and we thought they definitely were. They have now agreed to go ahead, and they are doing the work that we raised as an issue, and with the idea that at any point we would perhaps review whether we would get back involved in it, as we've said, either with somebody else or alongside other groups or groups of volunteers and be involved in that. But at the moment we have stepped back from it in terms of being directly involved, other than we are supporting them to maintain the legal process going forward, because to actually say to the owners, well, actually Northgate have pulled out now and the whole thing have to start again, would be a nightmare. So any questions on that part?
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Sally, you have a question.
I'm sorry you're having so many difficulties here. It's just such a shame, because it's almost a halfway house between your two facilities, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's yes, and we've struggled to keep you in Kingsthorpe in the past. So basically, it is so important, and as you say, it's a prime site for lots of things. But a lot of things were being done with the library that people do new education. We've got a year of children that have not had an education, that will need summer schools, extra lessons, help with computers. All that could be done there. Even a moderate charge to people that maybe haven't got a lot of money would help sustain the building, and also to get enough volunteers to come and help run the building. A lot of places now have a list of volunteers that do a regular Saturday, Friday afternoon, Thursday in other places. You just have to get people together, and there's people out there desperate to find something to do. It's just channeling them in the right direction. So I really am hopeful that you can achieve this, because I think it would be an absolute boom, not only to you, but to the community and everybody in it, and the children as well that have suffered through this pandemic. We need to do
children as well. It would be a fabulous opportunity for lots of our young people to go up there, not only to use the library as a library, but also to use it as a workplace and learn the skills and so that was our whole thing. One of our issues, and we have raised this a few times, and you may well be aware of this, is that the local authority pay nothing, or the council pay nothing for the building. They have a peppercorn rent, and they want to charge us £15,000 a year. And that is 60% of the market value. But we are hoping that in lots of the other libraries that have been taken over, some of the precept money from the parish council has been put towards the cost of the lease, and other people have done fundraising, or local businesses have donated. So we're hoping that if we do step back, we will do something like that.
When they don't have to pay a peppercorn rent to charge you to keep that building open, £15,000. These are the things, as councillors, we want to know about, because we need to go back and shame the people that are charging you this money, because they should be thankful that you're prepared to take the building on and run it as a library and other things as well. They should be actually giving you a
very thankful,
charging you. And I beggars belief that the Conservative administration on the county council seem to think that you've got the money when you're dealing with children that have got disabilities like you have. It's just horrendous. So I will take this further. And I hope all the other councillors here tonight will take it further, because that is absolutely disgusting.
Thank you, Sally. That would be much appreciated. That would be really helpful.
Don't worry, I'm on the ball.
Yeah, I have to agree with Councillor Bisworth about that. I think that's outrageous. library provision should be free, and if it's a school helping with it, then I don't think the school should be charged anything, because it's a community service. I do have a question on the back of that, though. Given what you've just told us, what kind of role do you envision the parish council having in this project?
Well, you can all come in and volunteer and help run the place. No, you know, we talked about, and I've only had a brief conversation with Sam, sort of like, he's sort of like, Shez, can you come to this meeting? And we're going to talk about the library, and we just want to catch up. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be expected to do, other than to listen to what your ideas were, perhaps, about the library. But, you know, we need as much support if we decide that we're going to step back up, and I would like to take that role and step back up. We will need support with tracking down funding, advertising to get volunteers, because we will need to put a volunteer rota together. We will need to be supported, because, you know, I can't pay for lots of staff to be in there, but I will have some staff in there. The intention was that we would put a job coach in, and the job coach would work alongside the young people to run the library for however long or however many days we had it open in a week. We were thinking that we perhaps wouldn't do it full time to start with, but would build up to that. But we had lots of ideas. You know, I've got folders full of plans, ideas. I've visited other libraries in other areas of the country that are run by young people, and you know, ones that are very successfully centres of a community, just to see the ideas of things that they've got. So it's really about having backing at the moment, and you know, having that voice behind us to say, yes, you know, this is something that Kingsthorpe want, you know, because they were perfectly, you know, when we were first talking to the council, they were like, well, don't worry about it, because the people in Kingsthorpe can go to Dusson. That's not, you know, it's not too far. They'll be able to walk across the mill or catch a bus and go to Dusson, and we really could just close this down and it will cost us nothing. And they were very happy to do that. So, you know, we don't want to go back to that position. You may or may not know that I'm a Kingsthorpe girl. I grew up along the Welford Road, so I learned to reading books out of Kingsthorpe Library when it was on the other side of the road where NAB now is. And you know, I think, and being an educator, the idea of books and a library being taken away from a community is, you know, goes completely against what I believe.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to come in on this, Sam?
Yeah, just to, because obviously Sally makes good points about the fact that the NCC have been trying to charge 15K, which unsurprisingly I challenged at the start and kind of questioned why. The explanation I was given, which obviously I'm still not satisfied with, and I think having the support of the parish to make that argument to NCC to actually say it's unfair would really, really help. I think the point that was made was that for any libraries in a similar situation that are being passed over like this, it was made out to me that special dispensations couldn't have been made. This was a little while ago, though, when I had this conversation about that. The other point on it is I believe NCC paid a really large amount of money up front on this lease to the tune of hundreds of thousands when they first took over the building and took up the lease back in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember exactly when it was. So I think that's, again, I think they're almost trying to recoup some money, but again, I don't think that's fair, quite frankly, to be honest. So yeah, I think I do think we probably now we've moved down the line a bit. Now we're starting with West Northants. We might well have a bit more leeway with being able to negotiate that and push that down to, if not down to zero, certainly down to somewhere very close to zero. Lizzie Bowen, I think, is still in charge at NCC of all this, and she has been listening to a lot of the points that I've been making. But I think we do need to make the case to her and see what can be done. She certainly, I know, is very, very keen to make this work, and I know that the team at NCC are, the officer team are as well. But certainly, when this process was started, to speak quite frankly to you all, this was in, I think, late 2017 when it was first mooted, to which many of us hit the roof, quite frankly, about how it was all being handled, and it was a complete catastrophe how it was handled initially, the whole library process. But I made that publicly, I made that clear publicly at the time, as a 6-month in councillor, I think I was at the time. So yeah, I do think there's leeway. I think we can do this. I think as a group, I think it would be good to put some more weight behind the argument to get that in place. But certainly, I know Lizzie and the current administration are keen to make sure that all libraries do not close and are transferred, either continued in the West Northants or transferred over to people that can run them well.
Okay, thank you, Sam. If I could suggest, I've seen that Steve and Sally would like to say something as well. Over the next couple of weeks, that we have a more in-depth meeting between yourselves and any of the parish councillors who want to be involved, and then we can see if we can send a strongly worded letter to first of all the county council and then the unitary council, and see what we can do. And also perhaps explore the option of us taking on the lease, if that's something that would be acceptable to the councillors in the community, and if, of course, obviously if it's affordable for us. Okay, so moving on, Mr. Miller, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Shez, I was going to say something similar to what you said about fond memories of the original Kingsthorpe Library, and from showing my age a bit there, I think, but I think it's critical really that Kingsthorpe retains a library service. And I think, as I mentioned at the last meeting, at the same time as the County Council was proposing to close Kingsthorpe Library, Daventry District Council was putting Section 106 funding towards Brixworth Library from the Buxton Fields development, which was felt a bit like a stab in the back. So yeah, I just want to basically offer my support. I agree with Councillor Shaw there that, you know, the parish council should, you know, what's the parish council for if we're not going to support library services in Kingsthorpe? I think absolutely it's something we should be exploring, how the parish council can help to keep those library services going in Kingsthorpe. I mean, if it's in the lease for that building that it can only be used for a library, and the county council is saying, well, you know, we want 15 grand a year to lease that building. Well, if they don't get that, they'd rather it sit there empty. It's just counterintuitive, isn't it? So yeah, absolutely, you've got my support, and I hope you'll have the support of the parish council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I come on to Sally, welcome to the meeting, Naz. Before we go any further, do you have any declarations of interest?
No, nothing at all. The building we're talking about with the library, didn't Beehive occupy the whole building?
No.
No? Okay, that's what I got told.
No, it's Beehive is only part of us. We're Northgate School Arts College Academy Trust in the first instance that would take on the library. The Beehive is only the part of it that is known because of our commercial interest up there with the cafe and the shops and things. No, we've never had interest in the whole building. We've only ever had interest in the library area of it.
Okay.
The same person who owns it owns all of it, but yeah.
Okay, I just for some reason I got told that you were occupying the whole building and preserving the library side of it a while ago.
No. But even I'm not going to run a bank and a card shop and whatever else is along there. Ambitious. I'm not that ambitious. Yeah.
Okay. So since you weren't here at the start, Naz, if you want to come in on an item, if you could just use the raise hand function, and I'll be asking people to ask their questions in the order that I see the raised hands.
Lovely.
Okay. So Councillor Bearsworth, Sally.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I totally agree with you. I think a letter from this parish council to Anna Earnshaw, and I think that's the person to write to, concerning the £15,000 a year, considering what the peppercorn rent is for them, I think is absolutely ludicrous. And if it isn't looked at seriously, we will have to take this further. And this could be very difficult for the Conservative administration, and you could also get this letter, probably not the first one, but we have to write again to put in the press to actually show that what we're trying to do and how little help the council is giving the people of a school that looks after children. And I think it's absolutely I can't honestly believe that any county council would do something like this. It beggars belief. So I think a really strong worded letter from us to Anna Earnshaw saying, could she look into this straight away, because we don't want to lose the library. They don't want an empty building. And also this would be a great advantage for the community.
Yep, thank you, Sally. I completely agree. I've never had to or had a cause to issue a press release before, so I'll speak with Kate at some point in the next week to see exactly how that would be done. And as I said, if we could arrange a meeting between Shez, Sam, and any councillors who want to attend.
That's fine, yeah, I can do that.
That's brilliant, thank you. Okay, Councillor Parish, Nilesh.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about all the troubles that you're going through, really. But yeah, it'll be a good idea to write this letter, and I fully support it as well. Fully support all the functions of a library and the local involvement it has as well. What I was going to just suggest is when you are looking for volunteers, maybe to advertise locally as well.
Yes, oh, we would do, yeah.
Because I do get a lot of people coming into myself and asking how to volunteer, and a lot of people are lost and just don't know where to look. So it might be an idea to advertise locally, and then you'll get local people, especially at the moment. There's a lot of people at home, but even moving forward, people do want that involvement and give up their time for a few hours in a day, just to keep them socialised and give them something to do. So yeah,
I think particularly now we've been through this, the pandemic, I think a lot of people will continue to work from home, and the opportunity to be able to walk out to the library and read the paper, or just see other people when you're working at home, because that can be a very lonely life. So it's just another
social aspect of it. I think that will help.
Yes, yeah.
With mental state as well. So yeah, it'll be a good idea to keep the local people informed on that. But yeah, no, I fully support the library anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Parish. Rachel, I saw you raise your hand. Did you want to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to say, I also grew up in Kingsthorpe, and I've used that library myself, and my children use that library, and I think there's a very strong, support in Kingsthorpe to keep the library open. And just one thing, one question that I have really is, would you still keep on the other facility in the Beehive Cafe in the Harbour Road and run that as well, or would that be moving to, would you do the...
We'll certainly be keeping the Beehive. The library's got hardly any space in it. We certainly wouldn't be able to move an entire school and all the business down there. And in fact, I'm going to plug now, we're just taking over the old HSBC bank on the main shopping parade as well. But just if you have a look at our new sign went up on Monday, so we're taking that on as well. So I'm going to have the whole place soon.
I think that's really excellent and to be encouraged, because I think all the facilities are used by Kingsthorpe people, and I just wanted to make that clear for people who were watching on YouTube that it wasn't going to be just the library in Kingsthorpe. You're expanding and you're taking on these other ventures as well.
We have we have a whole range of young people. That's the thing, the young people who can work in the cafe and young people who can work in the shops are not the same young people who would want to work in the library. But we have youngsters across the whole range, and it's about looking for opportunities to develop skills in all of them. And that's what we thought the library would be, just a very different skill set, and ideal for quite a large group of our young people.
I think it's excellent and very worthwhile Kingsthorpe Parish supporting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I think that's been a very productive discussion. Before we move on, does anyone have any additional questions they'd like to ask?
Do you just want to take a vote that people do want to ask the clerk to write to Anna Earnshaw and raise the serious concerns that you have, just so that we can record that.
In that case, I will propose that, if you just raise your hands. That would be the box members as well. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. That was unanimous. So we're going to move now on to item 6, and I think you'd be interested in well, Shez. So it's an item going, a logo for Kingsthorpe Parish Council, and it's considering running a competition for young people. We don't actually have to have a logo as a parish council, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to get the wider community involved. So that's it, and it's just an item to discuss this. what all the other councillors think and how you think we should go about it. Okay, Sally.
Muted, Sally.
It's getting my thing over to do it. Right. I think it's an excellent idea, and I think we should incorporate all the Kingsthorpe schools. I think that's a really good way of doing it, and just to make them what they feel about Kingsthorpe as their home, and how we can interpret that into a logo. But tell them it's got to be simple. We can't have anything too mad, but it's got to be a nice, simple, focused idea. And I think that would be a really, really good way of doing it, involving all the children. And I know it's a bit of work for you, Kate, but if you just send a letter and just say that we just want people to participate, I think people would. And that would be another way of getting people to know that we've got a parish council again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. I'm aware I believe this is at my discretion, but members of the public would not normally be able to speak on any items. But in this case, I'll invite Nick Hart to say a few words because he stayed specifically for this item. So, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to offer the club support on this. During the lockdown, the first lockdown, we had a design, the club badge competition, and it was received extremely well with our players, especially our younger players. So it was just an offer of support to get the football club involved and get our children to participate in this. It was as simple as that, Chair. So thank you for the opportunity, and we're more than happy to support the idea.
Okay, thank you very much. Nilesh.
That's better. Yeah, again, I support this. It's a good idea to get local people involved. And obviously, when we are engaging children, young children, we need to think about an age group as to who we can target to design this badge. Because obviously, we need to keep a certain feature about the logo itself. But yeah, definitely support the idea.
Brilliant, thank you. Kate, you raised your hand and then it went down. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a brilliant idea. I think we'd need to have a more in-depth sort of like discussion as to whether we're going to offer it to all age groups or specific age groups, or whether there should be a particular theme. So I'm not sure how we proceed from this point on. I believe Kate has dealt with something similar in the past, if I recall correctly.
Yes, we did something when we were speaking in the week. We did the same thing at when it was Wootton and East Hunsbury Parish Council. And we ran a competition for young people to design the logo there. In that instance, we particularly targeted GCSE students that were doing art and or graphics. But as you said, you could open it to any age groups or have, different age groups able to enter and shortlist some of them. You could have a public vote on the website as to which logo wins once they've been shortlisted from entries. There's lots of ways of doing it, because it's just really one of the elements is getting the logo, but also raising awareness with families that the parish council obviously is in existence now, and getting people to be aware.
Okay, thank you. I could definitely support that. So if we take a vote to approve this in principle, and then we'll come with a bit more of a firm sort of like idea of what we want to achieve. So if you just raise your hands if you approve of this idea. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on next, I'm aware that the meeting is only supposed to last for 2 hours, so we've got 45 minutes left. In the event that we don't get to the end of the agenda, the items that we missed will be put at the start of the agenda at the next meeting.
Sorry, can I just say I've got another meeting at 7:30, so I might have to move on to that one.
Okay. If I could just ask if you're going to do that, if we're in the middle of an item, you stay until the end of that item and then you can leave. So we'll move on. So the next item is item 7, which is police information. We were due to receive a police report, but that hasn't come through. So we'll be carrying that item over to the next meeting. And you'll all have seen in your agenda that when we reach the annual general meeting, which is due to take place in May, one of the positions that we'll have to have is a police liaison representative. And yeah, do we have to take a vote on this, or do you just note that we've got this responsibility, Kate?
Well, you can appoint somebody now as an interim to that post until May if you wanted to. Otherwise, we'll just bring it back at the annual meeting after the elections.
Okay, I personally have no issue with an interim person. Would anyone here like to volunteer to take the position for the next, I think it's 2 months. It can be any of the councillors or any of the co-opted members.
Yeah, it can be anybody. So it could be somebody from the public. It's not a very onerous time commitment, and it's a new initiative from NCALC. So all the representatives have only been appointed in the last couple of months. So Kingsthorpe haven't missed on a huge amount of meetings or anything.
Okay, so nobody's coming forward. In that case,
the co-opted members, I mean, could we have an idea of time commitment? Because, when people volunteer normally, we don't know what the time commitment is. And at the moment, we're snowed under with Zoom meetings and moving council. So it would be quite nice to have somebody that hasn't got that commitment.
Okay, so if you read the report, Sally, the time commitment, it says hours will vary from community to community and person to person, but it is envisaged that the role will require between 5 and 10 hours per month. So I did just think that I know Thomas Appleyard is very active in the Obelisk community. We could approach him to see if he would be prepared to do it until the annual general meeting on an interim basis.
Well, I was going to say, if it's only until the AGM, I could probably do it. I'm already a neighbourhood watch coordinator, so
that would be good.
Yeah. So I mean, it says about. I'm just looking at the sort of spec, and it talks about liaison with the police and liaise with the Northamptonshire Independent Advisory Group. I assume, Kate, you'd be able to facilitate those sort of contacts and that's fine.
And Calc will support as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm happy to take that on then if it's. I mean, it's basically for the next 2 or 3 months, isn't it? So.
Yes, it is indeed. Thank you very much for volunteering, Steve. In that case, I will propose that Steve Miller be appointed the police liaison representative. Do I have a seconder? That's Sally. And could we have a show of hands to see if we approve this? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Steve. Okay, so we'll hopefully get the report from the police about the general area for the next meeting. So we're going to move now on to item 8, which is planning matters. Now, we are a statutory consultee for any planning matters, and I'm aware that not all of us have sat on a planning committee, but when it comes to looking over these proposals, we can decide to make no comment, in which case the comment will be no comment. We can object to something, or we can approve of something or support it. If we are going to object to something, it's better if it is a planning matter rather than it's just a personal opinion that say it doesn't look very nice. I'm aware that some people may not be fully up to date with how planning works, but once we've had the elections, there will be briefings about what the role of a parish council would entail, and there'll also be specific training about particular areas, including planning, available to councillors as well. So once we've all had that training, we'll be better able to perform this role. And also as regards to planning matters, if it becomes that there's a lot of planning applications that we have to consider on a monthly basis, rather than have them on the agenda for the parish meeting today, we have the option of forming a separate planning committee, and we can make that up of councillors if and when that happens. Okay, so there's 2 items of consideration today, and the first one is 17 Cannons Walk, which you can see on the screen in front of you. And I believe you were going to present some information about this, weren't you, Kate?
I haven't got anything else to present other than what's on the screen. So it's just a single story side extension, so not a major development within the property. I don't know whether you want to see the location and block plan, so you get an idea of the size of the plot and the extension. So the extension relative to the plot is the area marked in grey there. So
I've been round and driven to the site, Chair, and had a look, and I haven't had any representation from the neighbours. So I don't think there's any been representation about this. And as you can see, it's just a corner at the bottom of the existing building. It's not going out from the boundary line. So I don't think there's a problem with this, because I've not heard of any. And usually they're on the phone.
Okay. Does anyone have any objection to this?
I just stop the share so it's easy to see the screen for a moment.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think anyone has any comments. So do you want to just?
In that case, I think no comment, although I did say I'd be abstaining from this. So if somebody just wants to make a proposal for either no comment, object, or support, and then it will need a seconder.
Yeah, if I can just propose a no comment. If I can just propose a no comment on there.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Sally. And then all in favour of that?
Members, yeah.
It'll be members only, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's
Perfect.
unanimous.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then the second item is for 70 Knights Lane.
Yeah. So I hope you can see that reasonably well on the screen, what they're looking at there.
This has been extended already, this one. And I do have some concerns because it is extending some more, if you can see what I mean.
Down here you can see where it's blocked in the
It's gone from a 2-bedroom bungalow to, quite an extensive building. But I haven't had anybody report it to me, so.
You are very able to use your own judgment when it comes to this. There's a lot of applications come to the planning committee citing overdevelopment, for example.
Yeah.
I personally can't see any real issue with this.
No.
Chair, I don't have any objection to it because it's well within the grounds there anyway, and doesn't look as though it's going to affect the neighbours at all on there.
And yeah, so the neighbours will be contacted for comments by the planning office.
Yeah, they will have done.
Okay, Naz, you have a question.
Yeah, I do agree with Sally. I think it is overdeveloping it, to be honest, because they're clearly increasing it by 50% of the original floor space. I know it's a ground floor issue, but I'd rather abstain, to be honest, or go against it.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chowdhury. So do we, in that case, I think it's a choice between support and object, isn't it?
Yeah, if somebody wants to make a proposal and you're voting it. Remember, of course, you're only putting comments in. You know, obviously the decision remains with NBC, so it's just comments that will be reviewed by the case officer and ward members. So, you know, the parish council isn't a decision-making body in this. So just worth remembering, when you're putting in comments, they're just part of the process that are taken into account, along with any neighbour comments and anything else that's received.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. So do I have a proposal to support this then?
Oh, I would be minded to support this application.
Is there a seconder? I don't see a seconder.
No.
So then it would be Naz Chowdhury saying that we'll object to this.
Is someone going to make an alternative proposal?
I think the officers could look at it. Hang on, am I live? They could look at it and see this overdevelopment. That's all we're concerned about in the area, overdevelopment.
Okay, so if Naz proposes, we say that as our comment. And
is this overdevelopment? I think we could ask the question rather than.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if I could come in here. Yes,
okay.
I think Sally has got she's correct. Really. I think if you just pass a comment by way of what question to say, we obviously are a little concerned that it may be overdevelopment, and clarification would be useful on this.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Steve Miller wants to come in, Chair.
I saw that.
Yeah. Hello. It's just a point of order, Chair. Sorry, it might be minor. At the beginning of the meeting, I think you said that you were on the planning committee for the Borough Council, so you were going to abstain on any sort of planning decisions. And just from memory, I think Councillor Chowdhury may or may not have been a member of the planning committee, so I wondered if that was relevant.
I don't.
Councillor Chowdhury, are you still on the planning?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes, you are. Oh, well, you should have declared an interest.
Sorry.
Okay, in that case, if you just note that, please.
Yeah, in which case, my advice is you should not vote.
Should I take everything back?
We've got a rubber.
Sally, you're on planning as well, aren't you?
No, never have licensing.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve, for putting that out. It completely got by me. I know Naz has been on the planning committee, but I didn't realise he still was at the moment.
We're on so many things right now. It's balmy for the next 2 months, and I don't know where I stand and where I don't.
Okay, yeah. So Sally said that we should ask for clarification. That is there a second?
I think if everyone's happy, you can still make a comment and ask a question as opposed to objecting to the application. Just for clarification.
I don't get any objection from anybody else, but I'm just a bit worried because I think this one's been extended before. And, you've got to keep
So is that?
Do you want me to say that then? Can we just put down that I'm a little bit, we're a little bit concerned that it might be overdevelopment.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Pass that to. Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. We'll get this once we've had our training on what we can say. Obviously, being on a planning committee is very different from being a consultee. So I apologise for any confusion, and we'll try and do better at the next time. And the last matter then, you've still got your hand raised, Naz. Did you want to say something?
No, it's still raised from last time.
Okay, thank you.
I put it down.
So it's just an update on the Buckton Fields development. I was sent, and I believe we were all copied in, to a statement from the latest planning meeting at Daventry regarding Buckton Fields. If you could just update us, please, Kate.
Yeah, so this is something Councillor Bearsworth just asked me to look into because I think it was raised in the press with regards to the removal of the park and ride from the development and increased level of housing with on Buckton Fields. And so I've just given you the extract from the Daventry District Council Planning Committee meeting where that was in fact approved. So just to update you with that. So you've got the note in front of you. So I don't have any more details, but if anyone has a query, I can try and assist.
Okay, Sally?
Yes, Chair. The reason I raised this is because when Buckton Fields was put forward, there was a park and ride suggested to cut down the traffic that comes into Kingsthorpe, which is heavily clogged up at the moment, as we can all appreciate. And the new road that's going through will not be sufficient, because it's only a single lane, to take the bulk of the vehicles that are coming through. And they said it wasn't economical or something, I forget the right word they used, to have a park and ride, but or they didn't think it was going to be used sufficiently. But park and rides are meant to be there for people to come into town. They're very successful in other towns like Oxford. So, I was very disappointed in this, because the traffic levels and the actual carbon monoxide fumes that go through Kingsthorpe, and we know that's very damaging for children in pushchairs, children in general. So I was very disappointed that they made the decision not to go ahead with park and ride, because I think it's a way that we should be going with climate change and global warming. So I just wondered if the committee agreed with me and we could put an objection into that.
Agreed.
I do agree with you, Sally, that I don't think this is acceptable, especially given that on Monday we did note the adoption of the neutral carbon policy. I forget the proper name for it, sorry, but we adopted that on Monday, and that was a unanimous vote. And I think park and ride would make up a good part of that. And if you read through the notes that were from the planning committee meeting, they said it wasn't viable, and instead they'd be building housing instead. Yeah, because it's already passed, we can't object to that. But I think that we still should make a statement saying that we as a parish council are not happy with the decision.
Yes. And are they doing enough to actually help global warming and carbon reduction by actually denying this and building more houses, which is going to put more pressure on Kingsthorpe?
Yeah, especially I think given that it's Daventry that's done it rather than Northampton Borough. If it had been the Borough Council, then we'd have had much more of a significant voice in the matter.
But we did try to stop Buckton Fields, but they weren't having it.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Mr. Miller, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with everything that both yourself and Councillor Bearsworth has said regarding the park and ride. I noticed also that Stagecoach did feed into this planning application and say that there were still issues with them providing basic bus services from Buckton Fields because there wasn't anywhere for bus bays. So, I think we should probably express our disquiet with the sustainability and access to the development as a whole. The question I had, though, was that it talks about the proposition about some of the Section 106 money being secured for the Brampton Valley Way, but it's not clear to me from that note whether the planning committee at Daventry has the power to actually do that. So it sort of says, it says earlier on, it would be need to consider if the proposed application had an adverse impact on the Brampton Valley Way. And then later on, it says that Councillor Irving Swift's proposition was seconded by Councillor Parker, who agreed with it. So, I think from a parish council point of view, I think that Section 106 money from Buckton Fields going towards the maintenance of the Brampton Valley Way is a good thing. I'd like to know if that is actually going to happen, and can we find more details of, or can we be involved in the actual process?
Okay, yes, thank you. Kate, you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I will contact the planning officers at Daventry and see what was actually going into the 106 associated with the application, because it's not clear, but it was probably delegated to officers to finalise the Section 106 agreement associated with it. So
I know that the 106 agreement previously was that for every number of houses there was going to be some money that was going to go towards the bus services, and that if, not that they were hedging their bets already, but if that park and ride didn't happen, then that section 106 money could go towards the development of the Northwest Relief Road. And I did respond to the planning application and say, I think you should be putting something towards cycle provision, because you get rid of buses and building a road. I don't think that you should be doing that. But if the section 106 agreement was kind of already there from the initial planning application, does the planning committee have the power to vary it? That's basically where I am.
I'm not 100% sure. It's a new application, so there may be new provisions in the 106 for this variation. So all I can do is contact Daventry and speak to the relevant officer and see what I can find out and bring it back for you.
That's okay.
Naz. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Sam. When I was on the planning committee, when it came up, and wasn't it something to do with they were paying £7 million towards the relief road? Does anybody recall that?
Yeah, so the overall development, there is quite a lot of section 106 money that is going towards the relief road. But I mean, if you look at, if you get really sort of down into the long grass, there are a lot of section 106 commitments from this development. And the basic gist of this piece is that if we build the new houses, then it frees up some more section 106 money for the relief road. That was what was basically put in at this point. So that there's already an amount to the relief road, and this was going to release, I think, another 1.5 million or something like that.
Yeah, what they did is, because of that, they ended up doing Buckton Fields in phase 1 and 2. So phase 1 they weren't going to pay, phase 2 they were going to pay, which they've not completed, and now they're trying to sell phases 2 because they've not managed to sell phase 1 of the housing. And within that, they were supposed to put a school there, or a nursery there, a little retail shop and park and ride. And once upon completion of phase 2, they were supposed to, I believe, I might be wrong, about £7 million for the infrastructure for the relief road. So I remember that vaguely. I know it was a fair few years ago now, but yeah, that's where we are. But thanks, that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think then we need to take a vote in a moment, because I've just noticed Sally.
I'm sorry to have to come back again, but I think this is very important, because, developers come along and say they're going to build these houses and provide services for the community that they're in, and then they find that they can't sell. I mean, my friend's son bought a house at Buckton Fields, and he had 300 snagging problems in his home, and you just wonder how many other people, and I drive past there sometimes, and there's houses up for sale, and they're almost sort of brand new houses. I really do worry that we are being taken in by some developers that are saying they'll do something, but then when they sell their first phase, it's the same as the ones on the Harston Road. They haven't sold as many as they wanted, and that's why we're still waiting for the 100 council houses that they promised. So it really is disturbing for me that they are reneged on their duty to the people of Northamptonshire, which it is. And I think we really need to make sure on planning that these people are tied in to their promises. We need a school up there. Our schools are overcrowded in Kingsthorpe, and the children have to travel in or go elsewhere to school. And that's wrong. If they promised a primary school, they should build it. And I think this is a problem that's happened time and time again with developers, and we really must take a firmer hold with it.
I've just seen that you've raised your hand, Steve. I'll come to you in a second, if that's okay. So the vote I'm going to propose is that we contact Daventry Council to ask for an explanation, and that you delegate the content of that letter to the chairman and the clerk, since we can't say exactly what we're going to say in this meeting. And we will, of course, represent the views that have been expressed already. Before we do that, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say I sort of generally agree with Sally's point about developers who promise things for phase 3 of developments, and then get to the point of phase 3 and find that they actually need to build more houses, because that's the only way they can make their money. I just wanted to observe, though, that the park and ride wasn't the developer's choice. It was basically the county council. have said that, you know, the park and ride at Buckton Field wasn't in their long-term plan. It hasn't been in their plan since something like 2013, I think. And that's why they're not moving forward with the park and ride. It's not necessarily the developer has said, you know, we're not going to give you a park and ride. It's actually the county council and the highways department said we don't want one, and if we did, we wouldn't put it there.
Okay. That does make a bit more sense, although I have to say that that's quite disappointing because it's a very, very busy road.
Yeah, I mean, the other observation as well is that, you know, this is as a sort of outsider that, you know, planning committees, obviously they weigh up all the pros and cons and they say, all right, we'll let you build this 1,200 house development because we're going to get a park and ride out the back of it. But if at the same time they know that actually it's not an ideal suit for the park and ride and that maybe they're going to deprioritise that park and ride in the next few years, you know, it's not a particularly robust decision, is it? I think hopefully with the move to the unitary authority, these sort of things may be a bit more joined up in the future, because obviously, you know, the park and ride is the province of the county council. The planning application for Buckton Fields was Daventry District Council, and as we all know, it's actually more or less in Kingsthorpe. So, you know, it's all very disjointed. So hopefully in the future, this sort of thing won't happen again.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, if there are no more comments, I will put to the vote the proposal I mentioned before, that you delegate sending a letter to the chair and the clerk. All those in favour? As is? Can't see your hand. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So that's unanimous. And thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. I am mindful that there's 19 minutes left before we reach the 2 hours. So once we reach 8 o'clock, I'm going to ask everybody if they would be prepared to continue for an additional half hour. And I do realise, Councillor Parek, you did say you had to leave at 7:30, which means we are still quorum because there'll be 4 additional councillors. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll probably lose a couple of councillors. I think it's very important that we give the right amount of time to these other people. If, you know, the breastfeeding policy, the other points that we need to do. And I think if we're having a meeting in a couple of weeks, I think it's best to defer, I'm going to sneeze, defer those. Excuse me, I've got to sneeze.
Yeah. So in that case, I happen to agree with you, Sally, but I would like to get as much covered as possible, because I can imagine that there'll be quite a lot for the next meeting. So we're moving on to item 9 then, receiving update on implementation of the reorganisation order and set up of Kingsthorpe Parish Council. So this is your report, isn't it, Kate?
Yes. So hopefully you've all got a copy that you can see in front of you. What I've done is tried to pull together, there's a whole list of things, obviously, that the Parish Council needs to put in place moving forward. We won't be able to, you know, not all of these will be sorted this evening, but I'll keep bringing this report back to every meeting and then updating you as we get more information and kind of working the way through the list, as it were. So the first item I've got on there is land and property being transferred to Kingsthorpe Parish Council. You'll know that we've got 3 allotment sites coming over to Kingsthorpe Parish Council. At the moment, I don't have any further information about what costings would possibly be charged to the Parish Council for those. The contract is with ID Verdi, and that contract is passing to West Northants Council. We don't know at this stage exactly what element of that contract is for the maintenance of the allotments and what will happen there, but I will keep working with officers on that. The reorganisation order also details that suitable office space should be transferred to the Parish Council. I had a meeting with Edwina Crawley today from the Property Department at NBC, and we spoke about the 2 community centres in Kingsthorpe, the Pastures and Kingsthorpe Community Centre. Very broad discussion. but as a starting point, Edwina was explaining to me that both centres have long leases with groups using them, but she is going to send me copies of the leases and details of the extent of those leases, and so that we can just start to understand what space might be available. But I do understand that there will be space available for the council to have meetings, at least, even if there's not office space immediately available. And I have spoken to Kingsthorpe Community Centre, and they've definitely got space for, you know, when we go back to meeting in public, they will be able to accommodate council meetings. Do you want me to keep going or take questions as I go along on different items?
Can I just ask, can I just come in on the allotments bit?
Yeah, go ahead, Sally.
It's not just allotments, it's disused churchyards as well. And because the Borough Council has sent their budget across to West Northants Unitary, we're suggesting that the people that do it now, which is Verdi's, I can't remember the name now, they will actually carry on doing it because they've got another, I think, 7.5 years to run of their contract. And it seems silly for us to take that on, which would be a lot of money when there's already, we might have to put some money in the pot, we don't know. But that's the way we're trying to work it at the moment. We had a meeting today at the cross-party working group. You were there, Kate, weren't you? And we're basically thinking that it should carry on with what's happening rather than being transferred. So you've got us looking after 3 allotments, you've got the town centre parish looking after 8, and I don't know how many are in Farcotton and Delapre. It's much better if we amalgamate those, carry on with the contract. When the contract's finished, then we can relook at the situation. And I think that's what we're hoping to do, primarily because they've got the money from Borough Council already this year. And we don't want to pay for things twice.
I think that's certainly the intent. I don't think we've had absolute confirmation of that, you know, the budget's in place for this year. So we still need to do exactly what Sally said and just work through it. But I think that certainly would be the intention.
Okay, thank you very much, Sally.
So I'd mentioned just about property, and that's at the very initial stages. So we'll have to bring that back to the next meeting.
Will that be available by May? Because I'm aware that the permission to hold council meetings by Zoom is coming to end right on the election.
Yeah, so assuming that those the current regulations do fall in May, yes, Kingsthorpe Community Centre would certainly be able to accommodate meetings. We haven't agreed any dates or times because I haven't spoken to members about it yet, but they have certainly indicated to me that they can be quite flexible with days and times for arranging that. So we will have, the council will have somewhere to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I've noted that the precept comes in 2 tranches. On the 30th of April and the end of September. And in the report, I said until the precept is received, the council has no funds. There is a proposal that's now on the council website that for NBC to give a grant, it's actually to all of the parishes within the borough, but including the new parishes, to give them a grant which would be received before the 30th of April, and that grant would help tide over some of the costs between the council forming on the 1st of April and actually receiving any precept income. And that grant for Kingsthorpe, if it's approved, because it's going to Cabinet next week on the 3rd of March at NBC, that would be around £12,000 that would come to Kingsthorpe Parish Council. So it is going to Cabinet. We won't know till after it's been to Cabinet and approval, but the council may be in receipt of a grant of £12,000, which will certainly assist with some of the startup costs and things that that come up in the first few months. Okay, that's just to note. And then I've mentioned in the report, I do need approval to open a bank account. I will need members to be signatories to that account, but in particularly in light of the fact that we may receive grant funding, we need a bank account for that grant funding to be paid into. So I would like to get your approval to open a bank account as noted in the report.
Agreed.
Agreed. I'll propose that, and I think we all agree with that. Yeah.
How many signatories do you need, Kate?
To open it and just to receive funds, we wouldn't be able to make any payments. We're negotiating with Unity Trust, who are very well known in the sector. We may just be able to open it with a single signatory, just so that we can open it and receive the funds. And we would have to have a minimum of 2 signatories to actually make payment from the account.
Thank you.
And that would obviously have to be 2 members. Yeah.
Okay, so if I could just propose that it be myself as the chair and Councillor Beardsworth, so that we've got cross-party, so it's not being sort of like a political thing. Would that be acceptable?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we would bring a payment list to council for members to approve before we made payments, but we'll work through that as we go. Also in the report, I've mentioned audit. The council obviously is in existence in this financial year, and prior to the knowledge that we may be getting a grant, we would have had what's called a nil return. So we would have had no income or expenditure in this financial year. If we receive the grant before the end of the financial year, which would be MBC's intention, then we will have to go through the audit process, because we will have income. So we do need to just approve the appointment of internal and external auditors. It's all budgeted for and noted within the budget papers that Leslie Sandbrook-Smith has presented to you previously, but just for the purpose of minutes, I need approval from members to appoint those.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And then insurance, I will bring a report back to the next meeting of the council to discuss insurance. And then the last part is on office setup. And again, I've just noted that in the list and said that we'll bring back a report to a future meeting, because there's all those elements to consider as well, but nothing to report this evening.
Okay, do we have to have a constitution?
That's your standing orders effectively for a parish council. So, and those were approved at the very first meeting of the council.
Yeah. So we will be amending them slightly with one of the items on this agenda, which is going to be the next item. So we've finished with the update on the reorganisation then.
Yeah, if everyone's happy with that and no other questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So in that case, we'll go on to item 10, which is consider how we'll manage public participation.
Yeah, so again, you've got a report from me in front of you. In brief summary, what I've said is that all the other parishes within the borough of Northampton, when they publish their agenda, that Zoom code that you've all received gets published with the agenda, and any member of the public can attend that meeting without needing to, pre-arrange to get the Zoom code. And also that the council has, at the beginning of each meeting, a short time set aside for public speaking, so that any member of the public can come to the council and raise a question. And it's a fairly standard practice across parishes.
Yep.
I have absolutely no issue with this. I think this will be great, encouraging people to come in and engage with their councillors and ask us questions, and we'll be able to come back to them either immediately or at a later point with appropriate answers. I'm going to propose that we accept this.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Naz, did you agree?
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's unanimous. Thank you. So moving on to item 11, and I'm mindful that we have 7 minutes left of this meeting. So I think I would like to defer item 11 until the next meeting and move on to item 12, which is promoting candidacy for the May 2021 elections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so obviously this is hugely important for the parish council to promote candidacy. And in my report, I've said there's a number of ways of doing that, which includes obviously launching the Parish Council website, which you need to do as soon as possible. I will pop it up on the screen as well. I'm suggesting that I also set up Twitter and Facebook pages for the council, mainly in the coming weeks, really focused on promoting candidacy. Obviously, they can be broadened to everything the council does, but for the next few weeks, I'm sure everyone would agree that that really needs to be the focus of the time and energy. The NCALC, Leslie and her colleagues have worked on all sorts of resources that parishes across the county can use to promote candidacy, so we can draw on that. They've also got an expert who's going to can support with helping to produce social media posts that we can just share and use some of the work they're doing. And the National Association of Local Councils has also produced materials. So I'm just proposing that we use as many resources as we possibly can to promote candidacy, and that and that we get as many posters out within the parish as we possibly can, whether they can be displayed in shops and businesses that are open, any notice boards, any public space that's open, that we ask if we can put posters and information in them.
So, yeah, Mr. Sean, you have a question.
Sorry. Yeah, just a quick one picking up on that. So the website, I think, is going to be one of the most critical sort of sources of information, and that's something that, if everything else, social media, etc., we can put it out there. Do you think for the next meeting we'd be able to have a demonstration and a sort of screen share that will go out? Obviously, this will go out on YouTube, so it'd be really useful if we could do that.
Yeah, I can. So I can just very briefly, because I know we're short of time, pop this up on the screen, which is how the website is looking at the moment.
Okay.
You've got this little pop-up here that says England lockdown, stay at home. I haven't done it yet, but what I propose to do is change that actually. That's actually a pop-up about candidacy and promoting the elections. That pops up every time anyone goes onto the website. And then we've got Kingsthorpe Parish Council working for the community, and a little bit of information on the front page. And then these links take you to who the councillors are for the council. I've still got to populate some of these areas, but all the papers for the council. And then every page that you come up on always links to, there's parish council elections on the 6th of May, could you be a councillor? Still a little bit of work to do to finalise this page, but everything draws you back to promoting candidacy. There's a little bit more work to do, but it should be able to launch in its basic form by the end of the week. I mean, you can always add more and more information to the website and make it a really good community resource, but in terms of letting people know that Kingsthorpe Parish Council exists and the elections are coming up, I think by the end of this week I can have enough information on there for it to launch.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks for the question. And we were intending to go through a full rundown of the website, but we're running short of time. But I have a question for you, Kate. Is there any update on whether we'll be able to do sort of like a mail drop promoting candidacy? Be a completely non-political thing. It would just be like, there's a parish council election coming up. This is the website, and would you like to stand?
Yeah, so at the moment, obviously under the lockdown rules, you'll all be aware that political campaigning and sort of door-to-door campaigning is prohibited. I spoke to Danny Moody last week, and he was writing to Nick Alderley, the Chief Constable, to ask if it would be permissible to do a leaflet drop for something like promoting candidacy, and he hadn't had a reply last time I spoke to him. Leslie, I don't know if you've got any update on that, have you?
No, I haven't got any update specifically on that, but I believe if you wanted to have some leaflets which were posted out via the Royal Mail, so you're not adding anyone additional going out and putting things through letterboxes, that would be fine. But obviously there's a huge cost associated with that.
It's about £65 a 1,000 with the Royal Mail.
But you also have to get them all printed out as well.
Yes, that's after you got that's just the postage.
Yeah.
And you can't just do part. If you're going to do it, you've got to do the whole area.
Yeah.
I think notice boards are the answer. Notices in windows, shops, those sort of things where people might be going, and the website. I think it will be too costly to do any other way. And for 15 councillors, can you justify that amount of spend?
I was thinking of like trying to promote the parish council and get as many people informed as possible.
Yeah.
It was just a proposal and see if it was possible. Okay, so thank you very much for that report, Kate. And we've just reached 8 o'clock, which means the meeting will be coming to a close. So the items will be carrying over to the next meeting. Sorry, Kate, you raised your hand.
Sorry, can I just confirm then? Everyone's happy for me to launch the website and to set up Facebook and Twitter accounts and start using those? Yeah, just to. Yeah.
Yes, Kate, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
So as I was saying, the items we'll be carrying over to next week. We'll be doing, or not next week, next meeting, which we'll agree in a moment, is receive a police report from the local area.
Yeah.
Then we will go on to a full demonstration of the website. Then we'll also look at the breastfeeding policy, plus a more in-depth explanation of why we're doing that. And then there's some other items which we'll be doing for information only, which will be how to develop a community plan and a neighbourhood plan, and also any climate change policies. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting, NBC noted the adoption of the Northampton carbon neutral plan. And I think that is something that we should consider looking at and adopting the parts of that which are applicable as a matter of sort of like urgency. It's one of our first actions. If there's anybody who has anything else they would like to be discussed on the agenda, if you could let myself or any of the councillors know, or the clerk, Kate Houlihan, please get in touch, and we'll do our best to put that onto the agenda. At the next meeting, you'll also be able to speak. It's currently limited to 15 minutes at the start of the meeting. I would ask, although this isn't a requirement, that if you do want to speak, you let us know beforehand, so that we can make sure that there's not going to be too many people showing up and not being able to speak. You'll also be able to sit in the meeting with us on Zoom. And if you do so, if you could just remain on mute, we do try to keep things as cordial as possible. It's only members and co-opted members who are able to comment on items other than to make statements at the beginning of the meeting via Zoom. So we would ask for your patience. And there's also a chat function. So if you feel strongly for or against something, if you could use that instead of speaking, so that the meeting doesn't get too boisterous. And with that, we'd have to now agree the date and time of the next meeting. So, Kate.
No, that was all I was going to say. We just need to, before you close, we need to agree a time for the next meeting.
So it is currently the 24th. So how about we only statutorily have to have one more meeting, don't we, before the election? But I would like to leave time for an additional meeting after that if it's required. So that would make